super fun, and all about artisan cheese and more to melt your peaceful heart and toast your peaceful life. Coming to you from the Appalachian Mountains of southwestern Virginia, this is the Peaceful Heart FarmCast.
Hey, this is Scott Hall from Peaceful Heart Farm, and you are listening to the Peaceful Heart FarmCast.
Hello, everybody. Melanie Hall here. Hope you are doing well. The conversation today and every day revolves around the value of tradition. Traditional homestead living, traditional raw milk products, and artisan cheese. Topics discussed here are designed to create new perspectives and possibilities for how you might add the taste of tradition to your life. Today, I want to talk about what I love about homesteading. Quite a few of the previous podcasts have contained lots of information about animal predator issues we have been having, and I know it has been a real downer. As for me, it has definitely been a downer, and I want to do this podcast to bring a balanced perspective and more positive outlook on our life here on the homestead. We don't always have such a bad time of it. In fact, what I love about homesteading is a much better representation of what it's like for us most of the time. Let me take a brief minute and say welcome to all the new listeners. Welcome back to the veteran homestead-loving regulars stopping by the FarmCast for every episode. I can't thank you all enough. I appreciate you all so much. And I'm so excited to share with you what's going on at the farm. This week, we have big news. The greatest thing is finally happening. If all goes well over the next few days, we will have a new dog on the homestead. Yes. Let's talk a little bit about the animals and such. We had yet another attack on our sheep. This time it was dogs. The tracks left behind were definitely from dogs, at least 2. And I'm not going to go into the details this time, but we are down to 4 animals. The flock ram, a yearling, and 2 breeding ewes. Thank God for the imminent arrival of a livestock guardian dog. We can now rebuild our sheep flock and start a new goat herd. The last cashmere goats are gone now. The most stressful thing about this whole situation with the predators is that we couldn't rebuild the flock or introduce the new goat breed that we're adding to the homestead. I wanted to get back to the normal flock size after the coyotes, but we simply couldn't risk bringing new animals onto the homestead that would simply be killed by stray dogs. Dogs are much harder to track down and stop from attacking your livestock. Coyotes, they eat what they kill, but the dogs just kill them. They're playing with them, whatever, instinctually, and they just kill them and leave them. And they're still out there. Yesterday, we found dog tracks down in the very creek bed where the previous destruction occurred, and it had rained hard the day before, so these tracks were fresh yesterday. I am so grateful. We have finally found a dog. Let me tell you a little bit about him. We think he might be a Catalonian sheepdog or shepherd, something like that. So Mac is his name, and he was rehomed from a family. They sold all of their sheep, and he didn't have a job anymore. But he was born and raised in the pasture with livestock, which is what we were looking for in a guardian dog. Now, the lady from which we are getting him has had him for just a few months. She was the first rehoming. But then she was having a bit of an issue with him going to visit the neighbors while she was not there during the daylight hours. And at night, he protected his animals. But she doesn't live on the farmland where he was housed. It's just a few miles away. And so he began seeking company elsewhere. She expected him to stay with the animals all the time, as do we. But it seems that while she was only those few miles away, he still needed to know a human was around, and he kind of sought out the neighbors to fill that role. We're hoping that because we're here all the time, he'll be comfortable knowing we are always around and we don't have to be completely in sight, and that he'll be diligent about staying with the sheep. We shall see. It has been many, many years since either of us has had a dog, and I, for one, am looking forward to this new adventure, and I hope Mac will be happy with us and his new flock of sheep. And adding the goats later will be an interesting exercise in introducing new animals to Mac. I'm sure I'll be regaling stories of the ups and downs of livestock guardianship, dog ownership. Stay tuned. Stay tuned for the Livestock Guardian Dog Stories. Anyway, let's see what's going on with the cows. Well, we're still waiting on Violet to come into heat. Does it seem to you like we are always waiting on Violet for something? I know it seems like it to me. We're pretty confident that all of the other girls are gestating a new calf. Will Violet get with the program? Well, only time will tell. She needs to conceive in the next few weeks, or we end up in the same situation again. We just have a few weeks to meet our schedule of having her pregnant and due for delivery no later than the last week of April. If we can get that taken care of, then she will be able to be bred with all of the rest of them next time, instead of being the only one who's not bred at this point. All of the AI needs to be done all at one time. Anyway, we'll see. We'll see what happens with Violet. Now, the new quail babies are going to hatch in a few days. Just this morning, I took the eggs out of the automatic egg turner and laid them on the bottom of the incubator. I have 84 eggs in there, and I'm not sure what's going to happen this time. A couple of days ago, we had a power outage. A tree fell on a line during a particularly heavy thunderstorm, and we were out of power for several hours. And this is not a problem during any time when the incubator is not running. After about an hour, we started the generator and plugged in the incubator. So that's the only thing was plugged into this. The generator was the incubator. So the temp was quite low and the humidity was really high due to the moisture from the rain. But I got that incubator stabilized pretty quickly. But again, for a little while there, it was the humidity was high and the temperature was low. So I don't know how it's going to affect the hatch rate. Now, I was going back and forth trying to decide between getting a battery big enough to jumpstart the car and charge all my devices, or one that would simply be enough to charge the cell phone and my credit card reader that I need at the farmer's market. So this power outage clarified that decision. There's a product out there called a Halo Bolt, and there are some other brands, but this one looks good to me. And they have several different models. The one that I'm looking at comes with a small set of jumper cables, a couple of USB connections, and even a place to attach a small device with an AC plug. And it costs just under $100, and it's a really small little compact thing. It's not much bigger than one of the old VHS discs. Maybe some of you don't know what a VHS tape deck is, but it's about that big, so 6 or 7 inches long, maybe 3 or 4 inches wide, and an inch or 2, inch and a half high. Now, so it's about $100 for that device. But then on the other hand, I can get a small charging device without that AC outlet and the jumper cables, which I didn't really think I'll need the jumper cables. But for about $20, I can get a small charging device that would charge my phone and my card reader that I need for the market. And I was leaning in that direction. $20 as compared to $100. So I just got a new car battery. I don't expect to have to use those jumper cables for quite a few years. But the experience of being without power for the incubator has convinced me to invest in the more expensive unit. So we, as I said, we cranked up that generator, but that was overkill for one little incubator. The more practical solution would be to be able to plug it into that small battery charger for a little while. At least I think that will work. It is designed for charging a tablet or a laptop, but I believe that you could plug in the AC cord and actually run the device. I'm going to get one and we'll see if it works. I'll just have to let you know how that turns out. These are the kinds of things for which everyone needs to be prepared. You simply never know when the power is going to be out. And for you, it might be that you need to be able to charge your cell phone. For us, it's going to be keeping the incubator running for those quail eggs. Let's see. Oh, in the garden. Let's talk about the garden. I have 3 5-gallon buckets of green beans in the cooler. 3 of them, 5-gallon buckets full of green beans. We picked them Sunday evening. Tomorrow I'll be packing them up for the farmer's market. They look beautiful. I'm so glad we got this great harvest. In the next few weeks, the Mexican bean beetles will come out and take over the plants. So we don't use any pesticides on our garden, not even the organic ones. We pick off bugs or squish them, but using that particular method ensures that eventually the bugs will win that battle. So I plant extra, And I make sure that the plants are healthy and so that they're not a magnet to bugs. Those are my two best strategies for pest control and being able to reap a decent harvest. There are small tomatoes all over the place out there, and that's going to be another great crop to harvest in the very near future. In the orchard, down at the bottom is where the blackberries and blueberries are, and the blackberries are all that is left to pick. Scott cleaned out the wild blackberries that have thorns, so it's easy for me to pick the remaining blackberries that we put in there that don't have thorns. Um, and we still have quite a few that are red and not yet ripe. So I have a couple of gallons of ripe ones in the freezer right now. And my plan for those is to steam the juice out of them and make seedless blackberry jelly. Yum, yum, yum. Now, I don't know what happened to the apples. We had several trees that had just gotten old enough for the first time to have apples, but those apples disappeared. I suspect the deer that briefly invaded the orchard area is the culprit there. So there's always next year. I'll have to buy apples again to make my apple pie jam. And I was hoping to see the strawberries bloom again. The ones that I got are supposed to be ever bearing, so they throughout the season would put on new strawberries. But the deer, same deer, ate all of the green leaves a while back. So there was just little sticks sticking up. But they've grown back and the plants look great, so I'm still waiting on those blooms and some more strawberries. Now, as far as the creamery, there's still nothing really going on there. It may be another couple of weeks before anything gets going again in the creamery. Scott is so busy with the high summer tasks of keeping the fields and the orchards cut and repairing fences that it takes up his time and just on and on. He has 3 or 4 more fields to mow, and then maybe he can get back to the creamery tasks. You never know, though. Some other task may come up. We shall see. So that's it for just kind of an update on what's going on around here. Let me talk about what I love about homesteading. I'm just going to run through a list of things that I came up with when I thought about it, and they're not really in any particular order. So the first thing is that I'm in charge of when I get up and go to work. And actually, I say this with some ambiguity. It's not like I can sleep until noon on any given day. In fact, there are still chores that need to be done on a regular basis, usually at a particular time. But as I have chosen to make those chores part of my life, I'm still in charge. I am in charge of when I get up and go to work. And I'm free to change that routine at any time. It might involve changing what animals we house here, but I certainly have that option. So I love it. I'm in charge. Another thing that is an absolute delight is having daily meetings with Scott about what we are going to do on any given day. It's a continuation of the hours and hours that we spent dreaming about what we were going to do once we were living here all the time and no longer working for someone else. And we still dream on a daily basis. We have to plan out. I ask him, what are you doing today? He'll ask me, what are you doing today? And we just kind of run through our tasks and see at the end of the day, then we'll check in, did you get everything done? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. All right, another thing I love about it is making my own cheese. I love making cheese. It is a peaceful occupation, and it sometimes requires a bit of heavy lifting, and that makes me tired. But in the end, I get these wonderful masterpieces of cheese on which to gaze. The entire process is still so amazing to experience, even though I've done it hundreds of times. To see liquid milk turn into a solid wheel or 2 or even 3 of cheese is still awesome to see. Now, the gardening has changed. Gardening without having to work it in around other things is what I love about that. And again, for the most part, that's like saying earlier that I set my schedule. There are some times when I need to do things in the garden, but I also need to make cheese or go to the bank or clean the bathroom and so on. So you do have to work it in around other things. But what I don't have to do is try to work it in after a day at the office or in a limited time frame on the weekend. I have the whole week to figure out where I'm going to fit in the gardening. And I don't know, perhaps that sounds too simple as far as something that I really, really love. But we spent years and years driving back and forth from Virginia to South Carolina and back for our jobs. And I had usually all day Saturday and Sunday until 6 p.m. to get all of the gardening done, as well as the laundry and the cleaning and on and on and on, whatever tasks that had to be done on the weekend. So my garden was always overrun with weeds, and it was not really that fun. And now it is a joy. And of course, it's hard work when it's 85 or 90 degrees out there, but it's a good workout. And if I don't get it all done in one day, I don't have to have it done by Sunday at 6. I have other days in which to work out, when to get out there and water and weed and pick veggies. So with the gardening, that makes me think about experiencing each of the seasons up close and personal. That's part of our everyday life. That's part of the homestead life. And the gardens just kind of brought that to the mind. In the past, we experienced spring, summer, fall, and winter as changes in the temperature, really. And perhaps whether it snowed or rained, that was the most important aspect of the season. But our daily activities remain pretty much the same. Get up, go to work, come home, watch a little TV, go to bed, do it all over again. Now, each season brings us a change in what we do on the homestead. There's a lot of activity associated with spring, summer, and fall, but each activity is different. In general, springtime is for planting, summer for weeding and watering, and the fall is all about the harvest and preserving the harvest. And some of that happens all along the way, but in general, this is how I think about my life. The primary focus in the spring is getting the planting done, and the primary focus in the summer is weeding and watering, though there is lots of harvesting happening as well. And it just moves around a lot. The harvesting moves from one plant to the next to the next. And then in the fall, it's all about getting everything in and preserved for later use over the winter and so on and through the next year. So experiencing these, just seeing those changes, what happens in spring, what happens in summer, what happens in the fall. And I never thought I would say this, but I love the winter now. It's a time to slow down, take stock of what worked, what needs to be changed in the next season. And I used to hate winter. Seasonal affective disorder is something I've struggled with most of my life. As the winter season would wear on, I would get more and more inactive and more depressed. And recently, in the last few years, I've changed my diet, eliminating most carbohydrates, and my mood stabilized. So that's a great thing. And now I experience the winter with joy. I still slow down. And that's why winter is useful. It is a time to rest up, and you revitalize the roots below the ground so that the organism is strong and bursting with energy in the spring. So outwardly it looks like you're not doing anything, but you're just resting up and rebuilding, dreaming about the future. And I have a great experience now with the deep revitalization in winter. And then I'm ready to get up and go when spring arrives. Now, something else that happens on the homestead is that you lose track of the day and the hour. Now, not knowing the day of the week, what day of the week it is or what time of day it is, that can be a little disconcerting at sometimes. I think, oh, I need to be somewhere because, that's the way our life was. I have to be at work at 8 o'clock. I have to be in this meeting at this time and blah, blah. So, but I really only have to think about it once or twice a day. In the morning, I determine what day it is and what I need to accomplish for the coming days. Things like getting ready for the farmer's market or doing a podcast or a newsletter. And these things are done on specific days. So I need to know when those days happen. I need to be ready for that. Otherwise, I check my list of things to do and get going on the first item. And then in the evening, then there's a little bit of reflection on what to prepare for the next day. So you have to figure out what day it is then. And one of the farmers markets requires me to get up at 5:15 in the morning and the other at 6 a.m. Now, other days of the week, the alarm goes off at 6, but we may or may not get up immediately. We have some leeway on those days. But market days, we pop up, get going as soon as that alarm sounds. So we have to know if it's a market day, get going. Let's see, what else do I love about the homestead? The new births that happen in the spring. I never get tired of new births. It's stressful for me, as I've said before, because it's like any baby, you're worried about whether they're going to, they're vulnerable in the beginning. But I wouldn't trade that joy of new birth for anything in the world. Now, also, sharing those kinds of things and sharing our homestead with kids that come to visit. They love it so much. I watched a group of 8 kids just a few days ago while they were looking at the quail. And they were just delighted in watching these quirky birds. And they didn't just look at them and go say, okay, that's cute. What's next? No. They watched and watched and watched. And they looked into each section and they opened the cage doors and looked for eggs. And then they get up on the stool and look up at the top rack, or I'd lift one of them up so they could see the birds in the top. And all the birds are the same, but it was just delightful for them to see them looking so intently at all these birds. And they go down to the pond. They love the calves. I mean, it's just wonderful when we have children here. Let's see. Clean eating. Now that's another thing that I love about the homestead is you're cooking. I'm cooking with ingredients that I raised myself. I know the exact contents of everything I eat. I either raised it myself, purchased or bartered for it from another farm or homestead, or I purchased a single ingredient item in the store, like eggs or coffee. And this was the first and most important reason that we started our dream of living the homestead life. I get so tired of reading the labels on foods in the grocery store and seeing all kinds of things that I can't even pronounce. There are so many fillers and everything has sugar or wheat or gluten added. And even the meats are now injected with flavoring and fillers to bulk up the product. And the label says something like contains 10% of something or other, and it maintains freshness or enhances flavor, whatever. And that's 10% of the meat. That is something that did not originate with the animal. I'm so glad those days are past. And the vegetables, you have no idea what happened with those vegetables and what they sprayed on them. And anyway, so I love that, growing all of my own food and stuff. And then with that food, then you get to spend lots of time in the kitchen. So you're storing food and you're being food self-reliant. And that's such a satisfying feeling to know that you can take care of yourself. And I know when you're working for someone else, time in the kitchen was a dreadful activity. I wanted to eat out as much as possible. Who wants to cook after working all day? I'm ready to sit down and let someone else do the work. And of course, I was eating a lot of really bad stuff. Chinese takeout comes to mind. That was one of my favorites. There's a lot of sugar in that stuff and MSG, so who knows what else. But that's all in the past. I spend time in the kitchen when I choose. Sometimes I'll just make a meal that will last for days. And then in the intervening days, I might not be in the kitchen at all, or I might be making jam or canning pickled peppers or whatever. And canning is another task that I used to dread when I worked for other people. It was something that I had to do, and I had to do it right away in a limited time frame on Saturday or Sunday, and it was stressful. Now there's still stress to get the harvest processed, but the window of time has expanded. I have every day, 7 days a week, to plan for when the next harvest and canning session is going to be. So another planning thing that we do, long-term planning, is a great thing, and that still goes on. So we're always long-term planning our journey or modifying a previous plan. And it's just as wonderful now as it was when we were just dreaming. We spent years dreaming about what we wanted to do and what we were going to do once we lived full-time on our homestead. We wanted to do everything. And then we soon found out that we had to pick and choose what to do. You just can't do it all. There are simply not enough hours in the day to do all of which we dreamed. But the dreaming and the planning is so much fun, and it continues. There's always something new to be added or changed or deleted from our homestead. And the last thing that I'm going to mention that I want to say about what I love about living on the homestead is just getting up and going outside and communing with God. Living the homestead lifestyle makes it effortless. And while all the work is going on and on and on and on, seemingly endless, there is always time, whenever you want to, just stop. Listen to the birds, feel the sunshine and soft breeze, and to watch God's creations grazing in the fields, the children playing, the amazing plants growing and changing each day as they blossom and produce their fruits. We are truly blessed. And that's it for today's podcast. I may have rambled a bit here and there, but I hope you enjoyed the uplifting ideas I talked about. Let me know what your dreams are and how you're progressing towards them. And it doesn't have to be the homestead life. We're all unique in our hopes and desires. Please share your dreams with me. I'd love to hear your story. Send me an email. Let me know what's beautiful in your life. If you enjoyed this podcast, please hop over to Apple Podcast or whatever podcasting service that you use and subscribe. Give me a 5-star rating and a review. If you like this content and want to help out the show, the absolute best way you can do that is to share it with any friends or family who might be interested in this type of content. Share it on all your social media. Let them know about the Peaceful Heart FarmCast. Thank you so much for stopping by the homestead, and until next time, may God fill your life with grace and peace.